Hello everyone, my name is Bridget and I'm here in Mount Shasta, California, and today I want to talk about how to connect with fairies and the elemental realm and how to be an earth guardian. Now this is really fun, and I'm going to take you through 4 different steps so that you truly can get to the point of actually making contact and seeing fairies. And through that, I want to also share that this isn't just kind of like some hoaxy video, because one of my friends actually fully physically saw them right here, like pretty much right where I'm sitting, and actually took pictures of them, and I have seen the pictures, and they are truly fairies. So I wanted to do it in a space that is actually real, and I have strong telepathic connections with fairies. I haven't physically seen them, but they absolutely do exist, and I want to share some of the ways that I connect with them and this friend connected with them, so that you can really start to palpably, tangibly merge realities and make fairies and elemental connections a deep part of your life, because it is very sacred and magical. And so that's what we're going to be getting into. So first and foremost, step 1 to make these connections, and I am throwing fae and fairies and elementals into one giant category, which is truly unfair, because elemental beings in their own category, there's so many different kinds, and that's like a whole different discussion. But I just want to talk about other dimensional beings, and we're also talking about earth elements in this as well, because the steps help with that as well. If you see things flying around, it's probably butterflies, because literally there are dozens of butterflies right around me, and it's absolutely amazing. So step 1 is the acknowledgement of these fae neighborhoods, of these fae environments, of these elemental, deeply spirited places, the physical environment that magically holds the space in which these beings inhabit. If those physical nature spaces go away, they don't have a home in this reality to come through and to communicate with us and merge with our reality. And if you know any of, say, like the Avalon traditions, the fae in a different kind of form actually had to separate from this reality because they no longer could merge with this frequency. And so it's a similar thing, that the actual physical nature, so the heather and the beautiful spiraling pine trees, and these actual plant spirits create the space and the environment for the fae to live. And so if that environment doesn't exist, they don't exist in this reality, and they can't bridge that gap. And so it's very important to bring awareness and presence to these spaces in nature. And that might sound obvious, but it's very much so not. And I've seen a lot of this meadow change, because even very spiritual or kind or earthen type people just are unaware. And so I want to talk about just a few ways that you can tap into greater awareness, to really make sure that this step is adhered to, because it's a prerequisite for the other steps to actually make contact with these beings. So one way that I see this distraction from presence happen is if there are multiple people in a group, whether that is, friends in a group, tourists in a group, a group of people. Often it has its own collective momentum, and often that can make us unconscious, or it can make us just so present to each other that we don't notice the land that we're on. So if you're in a group and you're entering a sacred space, maybe be that steward and say, hey, it feels like we're entering a really sacred space. Let's tread lightly and let's pay attention to what this space is saying to us. So that's one really important way, is if you're in a group, to do that. And also, of course, if you're by yourself, just getting into that present space and being very present to the space, so that we don't destroy the land that is that bridge to their reality. So step 2 is to build a relationship, a communication. And this is first brought about by this acknowledgement, by the presence of feeling like, I feel you. And it can start by feeling the plant spirits. Like it's like, wow, I feel a lot of magic or a lot of energy in the plant spirits themselves. And then once you go like beyond that just a little bit more, you might feel like, I feel like there's magical beings present. And just that acknowledgement itself makes them aware that you see them. And this has happened lots of different times in magical places in Washington and different places where like they actually sometimes different fairies or gnomes or elven beings or all different kinds, they actually get quite surprised when humans acknowledge that they know that they're there. And that's kind of step one, is like, humans aware of us. Oh wow. And then the communication and the relationship building can take place. And this is a really important part, and it's something that's not just done, say, in one place over time, which is the ultimate, but say, like I've been here a dozen times and over the years, and so I can begin to build a relationship, but you start to carry in your field, in your etheric body, your reverence, an acknowledgement of nature and the elements. It just becomes a part of you. So you might be going to a new land space, but those elements and those beings and that nature knows that you know, and knows that you will be a caretaker for it. And it's a really important space to get to go to deeper levels of different levels of consciousness and downloads that these places have for us. And I've had to really, really be kindly aware of this, because I take groups to places like this. And I take them to Maui and Mexico and Sedona and all these places that are very, very, very sacred, and thus then have plant life as well, and rocks and the different elemental natures that are very precious as well. And so I have needed to commune and build a relationship, because my entire goal, intention, is to bring other people into this space that I feel and hold so deeply and dear to me. And so I thus need to create the relationship to then bring other people into it. And then when I bring the other people into it, I need to bring them into it in a way where the nature doesn't feel like there's 20 or 30 people tromping all around, right? I have to create that delicacy, and our groups are always doing that. And some groups around the world, because you start to know each other, like actually get waterfalls shut down in certain places because they just unconsciously, even though they're seemingly conscious, just completely abandon all respect for nature or that place, or the rules of that place. And so anyways, because of this, and because I've built this relationship over time in a very humble and a very intentional and pure way, the nature responds. The nature responds over time. And I'm talking about like the elemental beings, so like literally wind, fire, earth, like the earth elementals, and then the actual plant spirits and the different devas like of the places, and then of course like the fairies and the spirit beings that are connected to those places. They start to respond and they start to communicate back. And so in certain times, it's happened on several occasions, and I just say this to help bring the reality of how much we are connected to full understanding that we are groups, and my intention behind some of these things fully change weather patterns, which I personally can't do by myself if it's just for me, but it definitely happens in these group settings. And different participants can share that with you. But the idea is once you build a relationship, then they can assist. But that's not why you build a relationship. But it is one of those things that it's evidence of that communion and that relationship building. And in this relationship building concept, which expands to other humans as well, is that the idea is what can I contribute? How can I give? How can I serve? Right? This is key, number one, for relationships. And so oftentimes, maybe just unconsciously, with the momentum of our culture, or with just like necessity of survival, or with just like, I'm going with the flow, man, there can sometimes be this like taking energy, and even from the seemingly most conscious people, or like this like, what can it give to me, and this scavenging kind of energy sometimes that can happen in humans. An example being, actually last night my friend was here communing with the nature in this meadow, and one of a guy on psychedelics came through and just like was traipsing and just like laid down in the meadow, which damages and starts to ruin the ecosystem tremendously, and just like lays down high tripping, and for his own communion, like so that he can, experience the fairies or whatever he's wanting to experience. But there's a selfishness to it, and there's a taking, or there's a, what can you give me, right? And so instead it's like, what can I contribute, and how can I commune with you? How can I relate with you? And then in that space, it can teach us, and we can receive, well, one, how to do it sober, and then two, if we are meant to do it, say like with plant medicines, it will tell us when and how it wants to be communed with in a very respectful and kind way. So that's an example too. So it's like, what can I contribute, even just with my energy and with my love, to this place? And then also, what can I contribute by not ruining you? You know what I mean? So that's a really important step too. And I know that this might sound basic, but it's fundamental. So, and this is just like how I've come into communion and built this in my etheric body, so that these plant spirits and elementals and fae feel very, very comfortable with me, and we have this just absolutely loving relationship, and so much comes through, and it's just so deep. So number 3 are the intermediaries. That's what I call them. Is the nature evidence, or the nature intermediaries, that are the first kind of step to the otherworldly. For instance, when you're in communion with the intermediaries, and it's a way of knowing that you're getting one step closer to like seeing the unseen realms, is the different bugs, such as, well, like butterflies or dragonflies, which are very magical beings. They actually will come and land on you, and they'll come and be with you. Or certain animals will come close and commune with you. And that's a way of seeing that the actual nature, like that you're synchronized with the vibration of that nature. And that is fundamentally step 1 to then the communion with the beyond the realm, is that you're the frequency of the plant spirits, or the animal spirits, or the bug spirits, to then then the otherworldlies interface through. And so that's a very important piece and way of knowing that you are synchronized with the vibration of the nature, to then go to step 4. And step 4 is that space of getting into a clear, mindless space with no expectations, to such a degree, with the pulse and with the rhythm of the nature and the landscape and the energy of that place, and then that otherworldly sense where you start to lose track of time and things, and really the mind, and you go into this space of feeling, and you go into this space of the heart, and you go into a type of translucid space through deep quiet meditation, which is one of the keys to step 4, is to be in meditation and silence, and real clear, crystal clear presence in your own self, to hear and to feel the pulse of the space around you, and then in that, then the space can communicate with you. And so that's when then I have my telepathic communications, and the communications, if they're coming through on an emotional level, which is often what happens for me, that means that it's taking effect in the astral body, and that's how often any beings that are non-physical want to communicate with us, because it's harder for them to communicate through the etheric body, and it makes us, we have to meet them there. So we're wanting to meet them at the astral. And so if you can have then an actual emotional experience, that is a profound communication that is taking place, you might get particular messages with that, whatever your clair is, right, with your clairvoyance, or you might feel the kinesthetic presence of the beings, which I'm feeling, which was why I kind of like look over here and smile. So you might feel that kinesthetically, and then eventually, even if your clair isn't clairvoyance, you will then physically see the fairies and physically see the full manifestation of these amazing beings, which is what my friend did, and I'm getting to that point. I haven't gotten to that point yet. For me, it's been amazing not to see them, because I want to build these other sensory capacities really deeply and stay humble to this whole spectrum of energy. And I've actually heard of a lot of people recently actually physically seeing the fairies too, so I think it's becoming more and more time. And it's funny because I've felt this all my life, and I've had a really strong relationship, but it hasn't been time until now to even make this video. But one of the reasons that I made this video is because the Earth guardianship is very important. To be honest, the fairies told me to make this video because they're not really being respected, and especially in this place here. And so I know that a lot of people will watch this that come to Mount Shasta, and if anyone is going to Mount Shasta that just pass along the message to tread lightly, particularly in Panther Meadow and in this space, and wherever you're going, because there's amazing spaces all around the world that hold these really, really precious energies and the homes of these otherworldly beings. And so that's one of the primary reasons. And again, this going back to the development, and it might not be as like cool. Like I can hear maybe some of you thinking like, well, frick, I'm just gonna take some mushrooms and see them, or I'm just gonna I just want to see them, and it's not about that at all. Like it's not about seeing them, even though that's like it's just like a cool other thing that happens. But what is most amazing is having a relationship with them. That's the most amazing part. And that is created by building our etheric body. And as we are Earth guardians in all the other aspects of our life, again, that also builds the frequency in our etheric body for them to feel comfortable to come closer and to come closer. And so that can go into lots of different categories, where it may be just with what you buy, right? You're buying organic. You're aware of your own footprint. You're conscious of that. You're absolutely doing your utmost of every moment. Everything you touch, everything you eat, everything you do, everything you consume is in harmony with nature. And that absolutely makes a difference to having communion with these beings. And from the smallest thing of like taking a footstep to the bigger things of say building a house, and cutting down trees. What do we do with that? And I've had to work with this because we're doing some reconstruction and we're buying timber, and that's one of the things that kind of hurts my heart the most. And so then in that point, because we have such a communication, I can say, well, what can I do, to the tree spirits? Like, how can this be okay? But this we still need houses, and we're not quite there with the legal stuff to do the full earthen homes everywhere, etc. And then they can respond, and they can respond with me by saying, well, plant a bunch of trees in my place, and for me it's plant a bunch of trees and spread the word of how that can be done, do your utmost to carry this message of Earth guardianship. And then in that space, that can be that kind of like karma, and that taking can be replenished. And so it's like, how can I replenish more than I am taking, right? That's the ultimate question. And that intention and that gentleness and that care truly will make the difference, so that full contact can be made, and full communion with the elementals and with the fairies can take place. And I've always felt that the fairy contact is almost first, like the physicalization of that will take place first, and then the ET contact. particularly because the fairy contact has to be in tandem with caring about Earth and building relationship, and that is it's kind of prerequisite, in my opinion, for like the ET contact, and so I think that's relevant as well. So I kind of went on a little bit of a rant here at the end, but it's very, very exciting, and I hope that this has been helpful. And of course there's other things you can do, like you give an offering and stuff like that, and again, being aware, like, what you're gonna leave, like a metal coin, you know, like being aware of, like, okay, we want to give to the fairies, but even just giving with your frequency is plenty, because some of the times when leaving crystals or leaving like coins or food, we often leave our crap with that. Often, sometimes the offerings can still have our stuff on it, and so if we can get to a really clear space of energy, sometimes that can be best depending on the situation. So anyways, thank you so much for watching and for tuning in. I have a video on kind of my guide to Mount Shasta that I did years ago, so I will put that here. And then I also did a video on ways that you can become more coherent with your Earth. Communion is in the form of being a guardian of the Earth, and I did a video on that as well, so that feels connected to this, so I'll put that up there as well, and I would love for you to watch those. And if you loved this video, please push like. Please comment below if there's any questions you have or any experiences you've had. That sounds like a fun comment thread. And any other suggestions for other videos, any other comments or anything. And again, even like whatever, the 5, 10, 20,000 people that will see this, if we can then share this with our other friends when we're in nature, and share this ripple of truly treading lightly and being very present and conscious and kind and building that relationship with nature, that's a huge ripple. So let's all do that together through this video. And if you like videos like this, please hit the subscribe button and the bell button so you get notifications every time I do new videos. And see you from Mount Shasta!